ZEnglish is a school with teachers from all over the world. If you like our videos, subscribe and head to zenglish.jp for a free class. Click the links in the description below to see our latest offers. Hello all, and welcome to our grammar workshop on phrasal verbs. So what is a phrasal verb? Phrasal verbs are verbs made out of two or more words, or you can think of it as phrases that are used as verbs, or verb phrases we sometimes say too. So, phrasal verbs indicate actions such as hand in, or look after, or put up with, or even the one in the first paragraph here, made up from. Okay, so phrasal verbs cannot be understood by the meaning of the individual words and must be understood as a whole. You must consider it as a whole phrase. There are three types of phrasal verbs, each of which contains a verb, a particle, or a verb and a preposition, or a verb and both a particle and a preposition. Don't worry about these terminology, about what a particle is or anything like that. I'll get to that, okay, in short course. Okay, so let's first look at what we call true phrasal verbs, okay, which is a verb and a particle. So, phrasal verbs that are formed from a verb and a particle are sometimes called true phrasal verbs. Okay, so when we say particle, that basically means a word that has lost its grammatical function. So it might be an adverb like out, okay, hang out, okay, or it might be a preposition like in, okay, or off, okay, but it has lost grammatical function and is just part of the phrase. So let's have a look at some of these. So not all of these true phrasal verbs require objects. If they do, the verb and the particle can usually be separated and the object put between them. And this is very common. So, do you want to hang out? Okay, she took off her coat. But we could also say she took her coat off. Okay, and this is really common. He hung up the washing. He hung the washing up. Okay, so just like this, okay, it's very common, okay, with these to put the object after if it's long. Usually we use it if it's a really long object, we usually put it afterwards. If it's a short object, it sounds better to put it between. Okay, like that. So when the direct object is a pronoun such as him, her, it, she, they, or them, or one of the others, okay, you must put the object between the verb and the particle. So Sarah switched it on. You cannot say Sarah switched on it. Okay, the same with these ones earlier. She took it off, not she took off it. And that is the case every time you use one of these pronouns. It must go between the verb and the particle. It must go between the two words in this phrasal verb. All right, let's move on and we'll go to what's often called a prepositional verb. And it's a phrasal verb that is formed from a verb and a preposition. And these look very similar. These look very, very similar. So they work like transitive verbs, and these always require a direct object. So the verb and the preposition cannot be separated. The object always comes after the phrasal verb. She looked after her children. We cannot say she looked her children after. Okay, and this is because this preposition has grammatical function and it tells us, okay, what's coming next. It shows us the relationship between the verb and the object and the noun that follows. So the cat jumped on the desk, okay, but the cat jumped the desk on, not correct. Okay, and that's very different to remember we talked about switch on, jump on, switch on. They're completely different. Okay, so when learning prepositional verbs, it's always a good idea to write something or somebody after it to remind you to add that direct object, because these always require a direct object. So they're like a transitive verb. All right, so let's go to the final type, which is verbs plus particles plus prepositions. These are just a combination of the previous two. So sometimes phrasal verbs are made up from three words: a verb, a particle, and a preposition. So these three-word phrasal verbs always end with a preposition. So they behave exactly like a prepositional verb. So if it has 3 words in it, this phrase, it is exactly like a prepositional. They cannot be separated, and they always require a direct object. I ran out of milk. I cannot say I ran milk out of, or I ran out milk of. Okay, like that. So just be aware. Another common one is looking forward to. Okay, he's looking forward to the concert. I cannot say he's looking the concert forward to, and I cannot say he's looking forward the concert to. Okay, so just like that. So as with prepositional phrases, it's worth writing the phrase out with something or someone to remind you that you need that direct object. All right, so let's just go over the word order for this. Okay, so each type of phrasal verb has a different word order. Phrasal verbs can be separated and may or may not have direct objects. Pronoun objects must be between the verb and the particle. Okay, my car broke down. Okay, so you can say, so you can put it in any of these orders. You can say verb plus particle, or verb plus particle plus object. I turned off the radio. Or you might say verb, object, particle. I turned the radio off. Sounds very natural. Or you might hear it this, and this must be the case with pronouns. Verb, pronoun, particle. I turned it off. Just like I said, I switched it on. But you could say I turned off the radio. I switched on the radio. I turned it off. I switched it off. Okay, and whenever we use a pronoun, remember we must split those and put it in the middle. Now, prepositional verbs and phrasal prepositional verbs, so the 3-part one, can't be separated, and they always have objects. So verb plus preposition plus object, let's talk about it, right? Or verb plus particle plus preposition plus object. I can't put up with your behavior. Okay, don't worry, this can be really difficult to remember. So how do we tell the difference? For native speakers, telling the difference between phrasal verbs is easy. We simply test whether an object can fit between the verb and the particle or preposition. And then we can test whether it sounds natural. For non-native speakers, this is much more difficult. A good trick is to learn how to use each phrase by writing it down with an example object. And maybe you could check with a native speaker, talk to a teacher, something like that to help you practice that, and you learn it by heart. So for example, if it's a phrasal verb, you can write think something over. So you can say think it over, think the idea over. And remember that if you put it in the middle, you can either put it afterwards or in the middle, but you must put the pronoun in the middle. Or if it's a prepositional verb, always write it at the end. Look after something or look after someone. So when you learn the vocabulary, you learn where to put the object. Keep practicing, and if you come across a phrasal verb, try it out. Okay? And the more we practice, the better this will get. It is difficult to get right, but I do recommend writing it down with the object, writing something like something in the middle, so you can be reminded of how to use it. All right, best of luck, guys, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye. Enjoy using phrasal verbs.